We are living through a digital revolution. I mean, I think our lives have changed, like how we communicate, how we live, everything has changed so much, so rapidly in the last 20 years. And it speeds up, it keeps speeding up, but we haven't figured out how to deal with it or how to process it, because it's that thing of saying something online and just going, oh, well, it's not real, because it's not. But it is, because that does have an impact.
The amazing campaign recently, the Me Too campaign, is rather than retaliating, with this in doing all this research and getting ingrained in this specific horrible person, is actually just everyone collectively coming together and talking about their own experiences, and it was huge, wasn't it? It was phenomenal. Like the kind of biggest artists in the world were talking it, and I could talk about it in the office, and it actually had this massive impact on.
And realising you're not alone.
Yeah, realising you're not alone.
There's other people who have.
Everyone just kind of having this moment of being like wow, and we use social media to overcome that kind of really terrible outburst in the industry.
I do a lot of work internationally. I've been talking to some of the young girls that are in Soweto Township that really don't see positive, role models, or really, haven't seen that in the past. And social media is working actually very well in those areas because they're getting to see, people, like ourselves or people all over the world doing really positive jobs and really opening up their possibilities for what they believe they can do. That's right.
One of the things that's come up in my discussions with females, although it can affect males too, is body image. But that's where social media goes into this dark place where you feel like you need to be accepted.
One of the, I think, more unfortunate things about social media is that, it's a great thing, it's a gift and a curse, that everybody has a direct line to say whatever they want to anybody they want. One thing that I've dealt with, regardless of what style of music I play, is people thinking that I'm not going to be any good because of the way I look. I did a whole tour in Europe once where I just wore like baggy camouflage pants and a big large size band t-shirt. And I had my hair darker color, and I just didn't want to be known. I felt like that was going to be the way to get respect, was to not look pretty. It was
masking your femininity to try and fit
in.
And then
after a while, I realized I'm just going to look how I want to look and play how I want to play. And if people don't like it, then that's their problem. And social media has given plenty of people the opportunity to tell me that they don't like it.
That's the issue with social media. They would never say those things in person, would they?
No. Well, it's because they can hide. And I think it's so interesting, though, having this conversation, because if we want to inspire younger girls, then we need to be talking to them, because then they realise that how they feel or what they're going through is actually not normal. I'm not going to say normal because it shouldn't be normalised, but it's kind of okay.
I'm 5'10" and often wear heels, and I'm like 6 foot, and there's many complaints, people in the audience, men in particular, that I'm too tall. I go to about 3-4 gigs a week. Maybe I don't think it's just because that's my job and I like to just see what else is going on, but also I'm just a massive music fan. But I have been sexually harassed at gigs despite being bigger than some of the fellas that are there. There was a time I was watching my buddy's band, the Maccabees, and I was holding like 2 drinks. Someone grabbed me, grabbed my breast, because both my hands were busy. But yeah, I have, even when I've been by myself at shows, I've had my bottom pinched or the odd comment. It doesn't happen so often, but despite my stature as well, but I've had that kind of sexual harassment at gigs.
Yeah, I think I've been grabbed a couple of times in the mosh pit, but I've just punched back. It's just in that kind of, it's a free-for-all, but if I was smaller and more petite, I think it would probably be a much more intimidating experience.
When you say grabbed, do you mean like in a sexual way? Or?
Yeah, again, arse pinched or whatever, but I just, and kick them or kind of punch out or whatever.
But when you say it, it's like to be expected. No, it's not to be like.
I think the violence of it is.
Yeah, but not
generally,
the sexual.
not the kind of the sexual element of it.
I'd totally go to a gig on my own, but I think the thing that I get quite worried about is my safety afterwards. So gigs finish late. I know my journey from my station's like 10 minutes. It gets dark in January. It's super dark right now. So I carry a panic alarm. So I get quite scared kind of leaving the venue. I feel quite safe, I think, in the venue. I think that's quite a safe space. I've not been harassed at a gig.
It's only actually really recently, in the last year, that anything's ever occurred to me personally. And it was a bit of a shock, I have to say. It was a bit of a shock to be like a 40-year-old mother and be out and, you know, have somebody kind of touch me. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. And that has never happened to me before. But I genuinely have felt quite safe going out and roaming around London or whatever city I'm in on my own up until that point.
My greatest dream in life is to be a mother. Like I don't have children. I've been focused on my career the past 15 years, but that's something that I'm looking forward to in my life so much. But I do know that that's probably going to mean, I mean, I tour 10 months out of the year right now, and you know, I'm not in a position where I can bring a child on tour. You know, I live on a bus with 8 other people. Like, they would be okay with that for about one day. And then the baby wakes up in the night or something happens, and you know, you can't.
I've had that on tour. The artist bringing his newborn baby actually. We did a few weeks.
Yeah.
And it was challenging, but it was wonderful to see that. It's looking at support, isn't it? So like what you're doing, and you know, mental health. And you know, looking at women, and I can, you know, from personal experience, is, you know, I chose to have a family. I have no regrets, but it's extremely hard for me, emotionally and mentally, to give up my career effectively, to have a child, and I didn't feel supported from my colleagues, from the people in my industry, because there were so few women.
I think it's impossible for it to change in touring, not necessarily because, well, it's a complicated issue, but fundamentally, touring is not conducive to any kind of home or family life in terms of if you want to have kids, in terms of, you know, I have to be available to, if I'm committing to an artist for a campaign, I've got to make myself available for, you know, the random times that, like today I got a call saying, can you go to China in 2 weeks' time? And you have to be available in a consistent way, otherwise you can't, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work in that way. So if you suddenly got children at home, I don't see how you can leave them for the long periods of time you need to keep your career going in the way you need to keep going at it.
I'm so sorry to totally disagree with what you're saying. My tour manager and my sound person is a woman. Her name is Caroline.
I know her very well.
Yeah, the first show that we did with her, since she had their second baby, she came end of the road with me with her husband. And I think it's really important to have a supportive network at home, and she has the most supportive husband at home. She had a newborn baby. She breastfed backstage. Then she went and did me sound. She was there for an hour and a half, and she came back. She breastfed again. What an inspiration.
I have chosen a particular route, which is to really try and pick work that works around my 2 children. And it's been just hilarious at times. Like, I remember going to a Women in Music event when my baby was about 10 days old, maybe a little bit older than that, and thinking, oh, right, I'm going to go out to this thing, Women in Music, and I remember like breastfeeding the baby and people just like edging away from me, like I had the plague sort of thing. But that wasn't a very good experience. But you know, I also took her to Great Escape, and we've been to like various kind of things like that, various meetings and events and things. And you can, you can, especially if you're freelance, you can kind of make things fit around you, and you don't have to pretend that your child doesn't exist.
Equal pay. How do we feel about what we do in this industry and being paid or recognised even equally?
In my sector, in the live sector, it's such a how long is a piece of string. It's impossible to quantify whether it's you're getting paid a certain rate because of your gender or because of just being that's the budget of the tour. And especially now that touring has become so much of an artist's income as opposed to it being a side thing from record sales, the budgets have got tighter and tighter. So I think gender equality aside in my line of work, because it's definitely an issue, the pay situation is on a case-by-case basis, and I don't think it's got anything to do with your gender. It's just to do with what the bottom line is of the tour budget.
I think within the corporate side of the industry, I've been quite shocked to see a woman taking a man's or a job that was previously held by a man, but at a lower salary level than that man was previously being paid, and I've seen that on several occasions. That's quite shocking. I mean, it's everyone for themselves in a pay negotiation, and you have to demand as much as you think you're worth and as much as you think you can get and what your value is to the employer, and it's that way as a freelancer as well. And you don't always know what other people are getting paid, but it's been quite shocking to me when I've been privileged to that information to see that happening.
It's not a conversation that I've had with my booking agent, but it's been a conversation between myself and my peers, so predominantly solo artists, males. And I've, it probably is quite cheeky of me to ask, because I was just so curious. We're playing like the same, I'm playing the Friday, they're playing the Saturday, but we're playing the same stage at the same time. And every time I have asked one of my buddies, who's a male musician, how much they're getting paid, it has been significantly more.
I was at the drum show this weekend and I saw this young girl playing drums, and I waved at her and she winked at me. And I was like, that is so cool. You are really cool. I was like, I'm inspired by you. I was like, who are you?
Yeah.
And I think if I had that confidence at that age.
I was DJing out in Spain last month, and I was speaking to this lovely Spanish girl, and she was just like going, I'd love to do what you do. I'd love to, but I don't know how. And it's just like, you just got to do it. Just like get some decks and just get on there, and you just got to do it.
I think you do have to sort of adopt that super confident, maybe a little diva, but not at the expense of other people. But I've found as long as you walk in there and you own it, like it doesn't matter. I think as long as you go in there with that sort of law of attraction mentality of like, I'm the bomb, that you can't, it's hard to fail when you really believe it.
That's true. Yeah.